all the haters last night, their storyline was that you were moving around a lot. Just
Boxing?
I know, I just don't get it.
I'm a little disappointed, but I also know how good he is.
How could he take it easy? The whole world is watching. There's not a chance he's going to make it look like this guy can box with him.
Can you imagine if Jake...
A significant difference, and ultimately, he did what he had to do to survive. He tried to sneak in some big shots, but in the end, the better boxer was going to systematically break him down, and that's what he did, and he got the victory. So I left that show on Friday thinking, this feels like a win for everyone involved.
Joe Rogan was reportedly left stunned after hearing claims that Jake Paul plans to sue Anthony Joshua following his knockout defeat. According to the rumors, Jake believes Joshua failed to follow agreed instructions inside the ring. Rogan reacted by saying there was no chance Joshua could have held back. As a world champion, AJ's responsibility is to compete seriously. The idea that he would allow Paul to outbox him was never realistic, which made the lawsuit claim sound ridiculous.
He's like very underrated, but he's a 2-time heavyweight world champion. He's like one of the fucking scariest guys in the division. Lightning fast punches. 245 fucking pounds. He's huge. He's way bigger, way more skilled.
He's like a foot taller. What's the height?
Speculation suggests Jake Paul is exploring legal action against Anthony Joshua after being knocked out, arguing that the fight did not unfold as expected. Much of the talk centers on the clear size and strength difference between the two fighters, which many felt made the matchup extremely one-sided. Sources close to the situation suggest Paul anticipated a different rhythm in the ring, but Joshua's raw power and experience proved too much. The boxing world is actively discussing the situation, with many doubting whether such a lawsuit could stand given the obvious physical and skill gap.
Paul's filing a lawsuit and will be taking legal actions days after getting knocked out by Anthony Joshua. So Jake Paul, who suffered a broken jaw after fighting AJ, has had enough of people questioning his legitimacy. JP's manager, Nakisa Bidarian, who's also the MVP co-founder, revealed that they're cracking down and will be suing a number of people for false claims, aka defamation. Folks, claims of Paul and Joshua having an agreement that Anthony Joshua disregarded that eventually led to Jake Paul getting knocked out have been circulating online, henceforth the reason for suing these people who keep on saying that JP's fights are rigged, scripted, or fake. As for Jake Paul himself, well, he recently spoke to his brother Logan and confirmed that 4 titanium plates are in place due to his injuries, with their mother also confirming that 8 screws had.
Ariel Helwani shares a calm and thoughtful take on the fight, explaining that there is little reason for alarm or disappointment. Despite heavy media coverage and fan debate, the bout went on without major problems. Helwani notes that the fight was handled safely and neither fighter suffered serious injuries, which is a key indicator of success in high-stakes boxing. He explains that the contest unfolded largely as expected, with both fighters showing discipline, caution, and professionalism. Preparation and focus were clear on both sides, allowing them to perform well while prioritizing safety. His analysis reinforces that beyond the drama, the event was organized responsibly, highlighting the importance of structure and discipline in professional boxing.
Is on the biggest platform in the world, Netflix, ignoring the fact that Jake took on the biggest challenge he could possibly take on short notice. After Tank falls through, he goes and he's like, where's Francis? Okay, I'll go for the guy who beat Francis. I'll go for AJ. Ignoring the fact that, you know, I think some people's stock were elevated on the undercard. Some of the fights on the undercard were really, really great. And ultimately, like, there isn't that much to be upset about. There isn't that much to be mad about. Netflix being involved in boxing is great. Jake stepping up and taking Anthony's best shots were great. I don't think Anthony looked bad at all. There were times where I felt like he was headhunting. There were times where I felt like he was like trying to knock him out because I think he wanted to get rid of him. But you have to understand, when you have a guy who's running as much as he did and take shots at him or not for the game plan, that was his best way of surviving. It's like trying to chase a wet duck. You have to get him. And I think Anthony did actually a good job of pinning him into the corner sometimes, cutting off the ring. But it's hard to get a guy who's moving so much, who's clinching you, who's trying to do the antics that he was doing. That was the best chance for Jake to survive and then hope that he could crack him. He got tired. The ring was big. It was 22 by 22 as opposed to 20 by 20. There was a significant difference. And ultimately, he did what he had to do to survive. He tried to sneak in some big shots, but in the end, the better boxer was going to systematically break him down, and that's what he did, and he got the victory. So I left that show on Friday thinking, this feels like a win for everyone involved. This feels like a win for Netflix, a win for MVP, a win for Eddie and AJ and Matchroom. That's their guy. A win for Jake, and then a win for all the other fighters. I actually thought, in a way, it was the best of all the Netflix cards so far as the 3 MVP cards. People were a little disappointed with Taylor Serrano and the main event and the lack of action. People had their say about, Jake and Tyson and the streaming issues and whatnot. This was one that I felt like it was like, if you are looking at it, with a clear mind, clear conscience, no bias, check, 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 check. That was my view. Now let me ask the team. What did you guys think? Rick, I'll start with you. I've not asked a single one of you what you thought. Rick and GC were in attendance. You guys were watching it. Didn't see you guys, by the way. I saw my mom and sister. I was looking for you guys. Couldn't see you. Was hoping for a wave. Was hoping for a little, how are you? Didn't see you guys. What did you think?
I think everybody did their part. I think you kind of touched on the fact that it seemed like everybody involved won. I don't know if I say that. I think you could kind of debate individuals, but I think everybody did their part. And for that, I mean, for the longest time we've been hearing, and the outcry has been, Jake Paul doesn't take real fights. We have to see Jake Paul in a real fight. That's the only thing that I care about. He doesn't take real fights. He only fights old people. He only fights this. He only fights that. He delivered. He put his nuts on the table, and he said, I'm going to take a real fight. Not only am I going to take a real fight, I'm going to fight a former heavyweight champion with knockout power who just dispatched of Francis Ngannou 2 fights ago in a way that was quite devastating. I'm going to go in against that guy. So to me, Jake Paul held up his side of the equation. I kind of view these I didn't have high expectations in terms of the boxing product. I think of this like the way that some people used to say, like, I read Playboy for the articles. I don't watch Jake Paul fights for boxing. I watch Jake Paul fights for spectacle. Like, if you came in thinking that this was going to be a display of the greatest boxing you've ever seen, you're just misinformed. Like, I don't know what you...
Away from the action in the ring, financial details have also drawn attention. Reports suggest Anthony Joshua has already lost a large portion of his earnings to taxes, leaving around $43 million for himself and his team. This highlights the reality of elite boxing, where even top fighters face major deductions, reminding fans that the business side of the sport is just as demanding as the physical battles.
Lost half of his earnings for the fight with Jake Paul because he's a UK resident and the fight was in USA. He won the fight with Jake Paul, but USA and UK won him. For that fight, he's supposed to get $93 million. 37% of it went to taxes in USA, almost $35 million. Also around $15 million a tax to UK because the fight was not in the country. And if the fight was in UK, he would pay 3 times more tax. So from $93 million, he end up earning only $43 million. This is weird, guys. If the fight was in Dubai, he would get all 93 million. Here, the government supports you to make money, not to lose money. Anthony Joshua and all the other sports guys, contact me and I will help you to move.
Eddie Hearn breaks down the fight clearly, stating that it was carried out honestly and without unnecessary drama. He explains that Jake Paul was aware of his limitations and understood that beating a world-class fighter like Anthony Joshua in a traditional sense was unlikely. Because of this, Paul used a cautious game plan focused on minimizing damage while remaining active. He relied on movement and defense to avoid clean shots from Joshua. Hearn points out that this strategy wasn't about winning decisively, but about survival and smart risk control. Both fighters entered with clear goals, balancing competitiveness with safety, turning the bout into a controlled contest shaped by strategy and professionalism rather than reckless fighting. People are going to say, well,
Jake was running and Jake was hold. But listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Jake had one job, and that was to try and survive. I mean, he was never, ever going to win the fight, ever, ever. And if you would have said to me, do I think he'll go 6 rounds? I would have said absolutely not. I mean, I felt that it would take AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him because I knew Jake can move a bit and he'd be moving off the back foot and he'd be holding. But it was the way that he did it, I think, was actually quite impressive. Like, not that particular part, but the way that he would, the way that he was strong in the clinch. He wouldn't let AJ get his shots off in the clinch. He made him miss a few times. And obviously AJ's been out of the ring for a while. But to be honest, I think the most fascinating thing of the whole night in terms of the fight was how he didn't get flatlined by that right hand. I mean, I said going into the fight, he's probably going to take AJ a few rounds to get hold of him. And I also said, as soon as he lands clean, the fight's over, right? He landed a few before, but the first that he landed really clean was the final shot. But, you know, he never flatlined Jake. I mean, he did break his jaw in 2 places, which is a disaster. But there are a lot of heavyweights that would have been out cold from that right hand. I mean, one of them was Francis Ngannou in a pretty similar shot, really. Do you know what I mean? So I actually give Jake unbelievable credit for doing it in the first place, but his performance as well. I mean, I stand by the fact that I think he's just a decent cruiserweight, but like he did go in with Anthony Joshua, and look, the world is full of criticism and opinions and negativity. Who else is doing what he's doing at what is he, late 20s? I mean, quite phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a complete madman. I'm watching him come out to that ring walk, and he's just a...
Simon Jordan delivers a sharp critique of Anthony Joshua's performance, focusing on the expectations that come with being a world champion. He explains that Joshua had the tools, power, and experience to dominate the fight early and potentially secure a quick knockout. However, Jordan notes that Joshua failed to take full advantage of those moments, not finishing the fight in the opening rounds. He argues this is a meaningful flaw, as early knockouts often reflect a champion's dominance and precision. While Joshua's overall achievements are unquestionable, missing those chances raises fair questions about his timing, choices, and execution under pressure. Jordan emphasizes that even elite fighters are closely judged, and such moments strongly influence public opinion and debate.
And clinging to AJ's legs. At one point, the referee had warned the pair of them. The fans didn't pay to watch this crap. Joshua finally imposed himself by knocking down Paul twice in the 5th round, delivered the knockout blow, boom, in the 6th, and broke his jaw reportedly in 2 places. After the fight, Gareth A. Davis caught up with Joshua.
People will criticise you for going 6 rounds with Jake Paul. How do you feel about that?
I deserve it.
Why? Come on.
Because, like, we're elite fighters. Like, so I put myself in the shoes of a coach. If I was coaching Anthony Joshua and he went 6 rounds with Jake Paul, I would get him back in the gym tomorrow, give him a bit of a beating, and we're getting straight back to work, because I'll be like, how are you letting this kid take you 6 rounds? Are you crazy? But I can't go back in time.
Well, they've come out of it a whole lot richer. Reportedly £165 million richer between the two of them, with Jake Paul earning more than Joshua. That apart, Spencer, 6 rounds to get Paul out of there. Reputationally, how does it leave AJ?
Well, thankfully it didn't go to points, because I think that would have been a disaster for Anthony Joshua. I think that he needed to get the job done inside the distance, and he done it. Look, he could have done it at any given point. I think that he could have cut the ring off whenever he wanted to and got Jake Paul out of there. He took his time on that. He allowed Jake Paul to run around like a rabbit and throw the occasional shot from time to time. And I think he only landed 1 clean punch, didn't he, Anthony Joshua? And that was the one that broke his jaw in 2 places.
But, I mean, you said, did you not, to us in this very studio the other day, he's got to get him out of there in round 1.
I did.
Otherwise, what are we seeing?
Exactly that. And I think what we saw there was a little bit of entertainment. And that was pretty much it, but not entertainment that many people enjoyed, if I'm honest. I think that people...
Analysts have addressed rumors suggesting the fight may have been rigged or scripted in Jake Paul's favor. While some of Jake's past fights sparked similar speculation, experts stress that this matchup was different. Anthony Joshua entered the ring under intense pressure, driven by both expectations and personal standards. His serious and focused approach made it highly unlikely that the fight could be manipulated. Analysts argue that claims of a scripted outcome don't hold up when Joshua's professionalism and competitive mindset are considered. What fans witnessed was a real contest that exposed a natural gap between the fighters and highlighted the limits of Jake's current skill level.
This fight was rigged. I think what happened was that, number one, Anthony Joshua had a lot to lose. If he got reckless and he got caught and KO'd in the early rounds, that would have been the most embarrassing upset in all of boxing history. Now, it's easy to sit on a couch and watch him and say, well, he still should have done it. But no, you're going to be more defensive. You're going to get a read. and you're going to try and understand how the guy's moving. Now, this is where I could see why it was difficult in the early rounds for Anthony Joshua. Jake Paul did not fight like a boxer. Jake Paul did stuff that, in my opinion, should have gotten him to lose a point or some kind of warning. He was doing double leg takedowns the entire fight. He wasn't throwing punches, he was running and circling, and then the second Anthony Joshua got close to him, he would shoot in on him with a double leg. Okay, now, sure, that works for an MMA fight. It was a nice example of how you can get by a boxer's punches numerous times. It also exhausted him. He must have shot in at least, no joke, 30 or 35 times in that fight, which is just absurd. And again, I think that's what threw off the pacing of the fight and made Anthony Joshua look a little bit awkward in the early rounds because he was keeping distance. He didn't want to get caught with that overhand right. And then as he stepped in, every time he closed the gap, Jake Paul would just shoot in and get into tight range, like clinch range. And very good strategy for self-defense, by the way. From a self-defense perspective, what we can learn from Jake Paul is even if you're fighting a guy who's massive compared to you, who is a world-class boxer and mega athlete, that it's very hard to KO you if you just keep shooting in on them when you're getting into range. If you just, the second you're in punching range, you shoot in. It's a strategy that's worked in MMA. Now we see it worked against a great...
Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi offer a detailed breakdown of Jake Paul's performance from an experienced boxing perspective. They acknowledge his athleticism and movement, but point out major gaps in his fundamentals, which prevent him from controlling the fight or navigating the ring effectively. According to them, his footwork and defensive awareness are still underdeveloped. They explain that speed and movement alone cannot make up for missing technical skills, timing, and ring strategy. Their analysis shows that while Jake has flashes of potential, his boxing education remains incomplete without more training and experience. They believe his ability to compete against skilled opponents will stay limited.
Insult to him, it's just lack of experience. But when you're that much of a novice, you either know how to run for your life or fight all out. You don't have that in between yet. You haven't developed enough of that in between boxing acumen to really pull that off. And so what ends up happening? You're either going to fight your ass off and you'll last a minute. Chris, you're being generous. Round two, he would have got knocked out in round one if he would have fought. But at least he would have fought. He would have got the respect of the people and more importantly, the boxing community instead of these clowns that follow him and are still defending him. Now what happens is you didn't get any respect as a fighter. You didn't get any respect as a fighter because you didn't try to fight at all. If he would have, I was watching that through 2-3 rounds. I'm thinking to myself, this guy would do this for 8 rounds if he can. If he can do this for 8 rounds, absolutely not fight at all, absolutely not engage a single time in 8 rounds, he will actually do this. And he'll do it shamelessly. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The shamelessness.
True Geordie provides a clear breakdown of the fight, explaining why he remained calm throughout. He says he had a strong sense of how the fight would play out, which kept him composed. Early on, Jake Paul relied heavily on movement, circling the ring and using agility to stay away from Joshua's power. While some, including Jake's promoter, pointed to size as a main factor, the fight revealed a deeper issue. The gap in technique and experience was too significant. True Geordie explains that movement may help a smaller fighter survive, but cannot replace strong fundamentals or bridge the gap against a world-class opponent. The fight exposed not just physical differences, but a major contrast in boxing knowledge and execution, making the result almost unavoidable.
Before the fight even took place. That's why he was so calm. And that's probably why in the first few rounds when Jake Paul's buzzing around like a fucking little bee, this is going to slow down. I'm going to get to you. And I said beforehand, the fitness, AJ is going to be fitter than you. Because normally when you're the smaller guy, you might have technique or speed or fitness. AJ is going to have it all. And once Jake stopped running, it was obvious. Like AJ was actually fitter than him as well because he could keep that pressure up for longer. And it's funny because depending who people like after this, the narrative is going to be completely different. For example, Jake Paul's promoter said it wasn't a skill thing, it was a size thing. And it's like, well, no, like once Jake Paul actually was forced to fight, the skills were worlds apart. But he did well to land a couple of punches. Like, I'm not going to take that away from him, and I think he should be fucking, proud of that he did land on AJ. He might have even won a round. That's something he could fucking take to the fucking grave. But let's not kid ourselves. If Jake Paul had have stood in front of Anthony Joshua from the first round and took it to him.
That's all for today's video. Stay tuned. Until next time.